What's up guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. For those of you that don't know, my name is Antonio Matuire. I have a 2017 BMW 340i and today I will be installing a B58 TU high pressure fuel pump. So it's pretty much, just to give you guys a rundown, there's two types of generation B58s. There's the first generation, which comes with my car, you know, the 340s. And then there's a second generation B58 that comes with the new Supras, the M240, M340s, and all those other cars. So my vehicle currently has the first generation high pressure fuel pump, which is not as good as the second generation TU pump. So just so I can give you guys some numbers, I actually have a website. I'll leave a link in the description below if you want to look up this website. It just has the differences between the B58 and the B58 TU, or the first generation and second generation. But according to this website, it looks like the B58 TU pump flows at a 75% increased pressure. Maximum fuel pressure on B58 TU is 5,075 psi as compared to the first generation fuel pump, which is 2,900 psi. So by switching from the first generation fuel pump to the second generation TU pump, I'll almost be doubling the output of the fuel pump, which is crazy. So pretty much you can go with the TU pump, which is kind of like an OEM plus install, or you can actually get like a Dorch stage 2 fuel pump, high pressure fuel pump. Those are very expensive. This is why I went with the TU pump. I actually bought my TU pump used from a person on Facebook Marketplace. They were selling it. They had got a stage 2 high pressure fuel pump and no longer needed their stock TU pump. So I ended up snagging it off of them for about $400, $500. When on the other hand, if you go with a Dorch stage 2 high pressure fuel pump, you'll probably be paying somewhere around like $1,400, $1,600, which is ridiculous. Money that I don't want to spend right now, not on a high pressure fuel pump. So this is why I went this route with the TU pump. So that's as much as I'll get into detail with the TU pump and the first generation pump and the differences between those. If you guys want me to make another video, a more elaborate video explaining the differences between the two, along with the other differences between the first generation and second generation B58, let me know. But for the sake of time and for this video, I want to go ahead and show you guys this pump and get it installed. So this is a high pressure fuel pump. It looks almost identical to the first generation, which you're going to see when I take that one out. Besides the top. So on the TU pump, it kind of has this smooth top, as you can see, and on the first generation that I'm going to take out, it has a dimple on the top. So that's one easy way to tell the difference between the two. And I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's the part number if you guys wanted to pick one up for yourself. Like I said, you can get them off of a used vehicle that might have been totaled, or just someone that doesn't need theirs anymore. But just make sure if you are getting one from online, it has this part number, so that way you know it's legit. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and begin the install. All right, to begin, you're gonna wanna start by removing this plastic on this side, as well as this side over here. And to do that, it's very easy. So for these, is gonna be a 10mm. And all you're gonna do is just turn them 90 degrees, and you're pretty much releasing the latch. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's an arrow, and you wanna make sure you turn it away from the arrow, so how they line up. You don't want them to line up, so turn them like that, all the way down. And then once they're all turned, you should be able to just pull straight up on this and do the same thing to the other side. Obviously, you're gonna wanna remove the engine cover, but I already did that beforehand. So next, you're gonna wanna remove this weather stripping. So I'm just gonna pull straight up on this. And then it does have one of those little clips right in there. I wouldn't worry too much about that. Really, what you wanna do is get this out of the way. Before I remove this, you wanna pay attention to this wire within here. Make sure you're not ripping that out with it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and remove it, and then when I take off the weather stripping, I'll just leave it in the engine bay. And it pulls, you want to pull it forward, you don't want to pull it up because it kind of is clipped in. And you really don't have to remove this, because what we're going to do next is remove this brace right here. So it looks like you're able to access it without removing this. So to access the bolts to this brace, there's these two little caps right here. I'm just going to use a flathead to kind of pry up on them, and they come out just like that. Same thing with that one. So I'm going to go ahead and remove them. So for these ones right here, as well as the other side, I'm using an E18, as you can see. It's a reverse Torx. And then for these ones up here, I'll be using, it looks like a 16mm. It fits right on just like that. So let me go ahead and get those off. So once you got the bolts removed, it should come out like so, just like that. So now that that brace is out, we can go ahead and remove this covering right here. That's kind of covering up the fuel pump. All right, so I'm having a little difficulty removing this. So I'm just gonna go ahead and remove this plastic cover right here. There's 10mm bolts. There's 1, 2, 3, and then on the other side there's 4. And so scratch what I said earlier, you are gonna have to remove this. So as you can see right here, it has one of those little push pins. So I'm just gonna grab a flathead screwdriver, push that pin out, and then it'll come out all as one piece. Then once that's out, it'll allow you to take the back portion out and then get this bolt out as well, and then get this whole brace off. All right, so now that all the screws are out, this should come out real nice. And then you want to make sure that you're careful over here. See how I pulled it forward? You don't want to pull it straight up because this line right here, you don't want to damage it. So pull it straight forward first, and then it should come out. Now that that's out, this should be a lot easier to remove. So remove this, and there is the first generation high pressure fuel pump. So this is the difference. As I said earlier, the first generation has the dimple at the top, and the second generation does not, has a smooth top. So I'm gonna go ahead and start getting this off. What I'm gonna be doing next is loosening each one of these lines in the fuel rod. So there is one right here, 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 and here. I'm gonna start with these two that are actually connected to the fuel pump on the high pressure side and the low pressure side. I'm gonna be recording that on my GoPro as I'm doing it, so that way you guys have a better understanding of what to expect if you do it yourself. Before I get going unscrewing this, you're definitely gonna want some rags down, because like I said, you never know, fuel is gonna fly out or whatever the case is. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap a couple of rags around. And honestly, I'm just gonna do one at a time. So I'll just wrap the rag around this side first, and then when I move to the next one, if this one's not leaking still, I'll just move the rag over there. So for these connections, looks like I'm gonna be using a 17mm box wrench, and just slowly loosen it. You don't wanna go too fast. Fuel will probably fly out. I mean, I've never done this before. My plan, as soon as I see some fuel, I'm probably gonna stop unscrewing it. But it doesn't look like any fuel is coming out. So it didn't look like any fuel came out of this side when I unscrewed it. So let me go ahead and transfer the rag over to this side and see if any fuel comes out then. So I will say I don't see any fuel, but I can definitely smell it. It smells like straight up gasoline up in here. It smells like straight up gasolina up in here, Daddy Yankee style. Make sure you're turning it the right way. Okay, so obviously on this side, you're gonna be pulling towards yourself. But on this side, you're gonna be pushing away from yourself because it is the other side. I'm not the smartest, so I was twisting it the wrong way for a while. What I am going to do is back up the other ones, because in order to take this high pressure fuel pump off, you're gonna have to undo these screws. There's one right here, as well as one over here on the other side. But you can't completely take it off until you back these out, and you can't do that unless these are unscrewed as well. And at the end of the day, when fitting the new pump, it'll just give me more wiggle room. So I'm gonna go ahead and do those real quick as well. So when I started trying to remove this one actually started leaking fuel. So I'm gonna put a towel or a rag on the other side as well, just in case that one starts leaking. So it'd probably be a smart idea just to put a rag on all the areas, so if they do start leaking, it's not leaking all over the engine bay. So go ahead and remove this one. So I'm not gonna fully remove this rail. I'm just gonna kind of leave it loose like that. There's no need to remove it fully if we're gonna be installing it on the new one anyway. So with this one, let's see if I can pull this side out. There we go. So now that both ends are disconnected, you're gonna want to disconnect this right here, and you're just gonna pull up on this little tab. And then once it's up like that, you're gonna push and then pull straight out. So now that this connection is unplugged, we're gonna go ahead and unscrew the fuel pump. Now this part is very, very important. So you wanna make sure that you're unscrewing it evenly as you're going. There's actually a piston underneath this fuel pump, and you don't want it to come out crooked. So what you're probably gonna wanna do is go back and forth unscrewing them. Either one turn or a half turn each time. So do this side one half turn, the other side half turn, the other side half turn, and just keep going back and forth until it's completely out. And that's the safest way to make sure you're not damaging anything underneath, as well as the fuel pump itself. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that off camera, and I'll get back with you guys when the fuel pump's out. All right, so the screws are removed. So I'm gonna go ahead and gently take it out. And there it is, as you can see, some oil. Probably time for an oil change for sure. So here are the pumps side by side. As you can see, first generation, second generation TU. The TU pump is just slightly bigger, nothing crazy. So one of the biggest issues that people have had with installing the new pump is that this is facing the wrong way. As you can see, on the old pump, it's facing forward. On this one, it's facing backwards. And for the longest time, people have been getting wire extensions or splitting into the old wire or whatever the case may be in order to install it. But after doing some research online, apparently this is able to come off and flip. Forgive me for not knowing the name of the individual that found out how to flip this, but credit goes out to them. They're probably saving people a lot of headache and money. Apparently what you're gonna do is just place a flathead screwdriver underneath this area and then just kind of pry all the way around, and this should come off as one piece, and then you can flip it. So let me go ahead and try to do that off camera, and I'll show you guys if it works. So wow, that actually came off pretty easy. Like I said, all I did was kind of pry a flathead screwdriver, and all I really did was kind of shimmy under there and pry up just a little bit. It really doesn't take too much, and it just came right off. So now that we have off, we can head over to the car and see the orientation that it's going to need to be in. So the pump will be installed like so, because the connection is going to be facing this way. And as you can remember, it was facing this way originally, but all we need to do is turn it this way. So when we install it, it's going to be facing just like that, so it can actually plug in to this connection right here. So once you flip the direction, what you're going to want to do is, I'm just going to use a mallet to kind of set it in place so that way it doesn't come off. Just kind of hit it on there. Make sure it doesn't come off, and it looks like it's on there pretty good. So once I reinstalled it, it's gonna line up perfectly with this connection right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. When you reinstall it, you're gonna install it just like you uninstalled it. Make sure you're screwing in the screws, just kind of a half turn at a time on both sides, so that way it doesn't go in crooked. And before you do that, you probably want to get a little bit of oil and lube this area up, because it's supposed to have oil on it, because you don't want metal on metal contact. So I'm gonna go ahead and get some oil, lube this up, and then install it just like I uninstalled it. Alright, so I went ahead and installed the new high pressure fuel pump. Like I said, you really take your time. I know it can be annoying, but half turn on each side so it goes in straight and you're not damaging anything. So now that it's in and it's nice and tight, secure, I'm gonna go ahead and reconnect these fuel lines. So obviously this one to this side, this one to this, and then obviously the ones that I disconnected over here and here. So once I connect all of those, I will get back with you guys for the next step. Alright, so once you get all the areas tightened back up, just like you found them, they all screwed in pretty easy for me. Everything lined up pretty good. So that being said, once everything's connected, connect this little sensor right here again, and then I'm gonna go ahead and start the vehicle and make sure everything sounds okay and everything looks okay and is running okay before I put all the plastic back together. So I just started her up. Everything looks good, nothing's leaking. Make sure you're checking all of your connections. Make sure no fuel is leaking out of any of them. Make sure you're checking the high pressure fuel pump itself. Make sure nothing's leaking there. But everything looks great, everything sounds great, and I'm not getting any check engine lights on the dash. So I'm gonna go ahead and put everything back together, and then we'll go out for a test drive. Alright guys, so once you're done, just make sure you put everything back how you found it. So the E-torques on the struts, I went ahead and tightened to 56 foot-pounds of torque on both sides. And these ones up here, so I honestly just tightened them as tight as I can tighten them, because I know when I was taking them off, they were pretty tight. And then everything else is pretty much self-explanatory. All the plastic pieces, just put back how you had them. With this weather stripping that runs along the top, just make sure you're adding that wire and tucking it in that little flap all the way down. Alright guys, and just like that, that finishes up this install. If you guys have any questions on the install at all, you guys, you're always free to hit me up at my Instagram, @Matwire. I'll answer any questions that any of you guys might have. I do plan on doing an additional video after this one. Just wanted to keep this one short and sweet as the install. I do want to flash my car. Boom Mode actually has an OTS map that you can flash. It's called Stage 2 Plus. So if you have the Dorch Stage 2 high pressure fuel pump or the second generation TU pump, you can use the Stage 2 Plus. flash, so hopefully that will give me some power gains. I don't know, we'll see, but like I said, I'll keep that for a separate video to where I can do a first impressions as well as that tune. But just like that, that wraps up today's video. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing, and if you like this video or it helped you out in any way, please smash that thumbs up button, helps me out tremendously. And just like that, I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.
Excited just to see me, wish I felt the same way.